So you know how you're gay, but you're like normal. So like, I don't have anything against gay people, but at least you're still a guy, you know? I like you because you're not so feminine. Recognize any of these statements? Heard them before? You may have, or you may not have. You may even have made these statements. From experience, being gay doesn't preclude you from making homophobic remarks, however well-intentioned. I'm not going to berate you for making the occasional jape or witty remark. I'd be a hypocrite to do so. Yet I'm quite consciously aware of where I draw the lines, and when push comes to shove, I have no qualms defending where I actually stand on things, as I am doing now. So I have a certain preference concerning types of guys. This preference sometimes varies, but generally speaking I find myself falling for boyish guys around their early 20s. It just so happens that I generally do not fall for guys who would be considered overly feminine. Well, that it just so happens is cutting corners a bit. A lot could be said about society's influence on my preference as well, but as it stands, that's the gist of what I look for in a guy. I know there are some who would claim that I'm being too picky, and they're probably right. However, I am content in the knowledge that at least I don't judge a guy by how feminine he behaves. It is this topic that I find so interesting. How come some gay guys are more feminine than others, and what do people think about this, and why? Even in the gay community, feminine guys get a lot of flack from their peers. We're pretty accepting generally, and I'd like to think most gay gatherings, like gay clubs or prides or whatever, are reasonably safe venues for anyone. But a cursory glance at many a gay dating site confronts you with the term straight acting. Gay guys who associate acting manly with acting straight. We don't even really bat an eyelid when we hear that. Straight acting. Regardless of how silly it really is to need to act a certain way in order for guys to find you appealing, we don't really consider the wider consequences of our associations. After all, straight acting is acting manly, isn't it? Granted, in almost all gay men that I've encountered over the years there has always been something, a quirk, a deviating voice, a look, anything really, that conformed with their sexual orientation. Yet I've encountered straight men as well, who could take a lesson from these self-proclaimed straight-acting gay guys, and I've met gay guys who've never needed to act to be mistaken for a straight guy. Although I'm well aware of my own gay quirks, if you will, I've been told often enough by people that I didn't initially appear gay to them. So while some stereotypes may be based in truth, the issue of whether a gay man is more masculine or more feminine, and what that says about them as an individual, is not as black and white as it would seem at first glance. There are larger questions going on, like the one of gender identity, and on top of that, there are cultural issues as well. What is considered feminine in one culture isn't deemed as such in others. Two quick examples of this would be the US and Sweden, where the former is an extremely masculine nation and the latter is a very feminine one. But, since those in itself are things worthy of their own vlog, let's get back on topic. Stereotypes, yes. How about a few more detailed examples then? Well, what do we think of when we envision a feminine gay man? A high-pitched voice, certain hand gestures, a type of walk, all of the above and then some. I've heard people complaining in the past that they thought these traits were learned behaviour, that it was fine being gay, but for God's sake, act normal. This generally left me quite puzzled. It's somewhat akin to people who think being gay is a choice rather than an inherent biological disposition, in that it doesn't seem to reach them that if it were really a choice, most self-identifying gay men would choose not to be bullied, marginalized or downright mistreated. In the same way, I do not think a gay guy chooses to come across more feminine than others. The pitch of your voice isn't something you decide on at some point in your life. If this were a choice, I know there are traits that some gay guys wouldn't hesitate to change. The point is, though, that it isn't a choice. And if a flamboyantly gay man passes you by and you still feel uncomfortable, try to remember that that's your problem, not theirs. But, I hear you protest, surely you can see how some guys start behaving more gay after they've come out of the closet? Well, yes, I can see that. I can also look further and note that most likely they weren't behaving completely like themselves yet before they came out, and exiting that closet has given them the breathing space to relax into who they already were but you just hadn't truly met yet. Another point against this complaint comes in the form of a little personal anecdote. I have a friend who, once I met him, I just knew was gay. You know, gaydar and all that jazz. Yet while it was obvious to me and others around them that he was on my team, so to speak, and he fits the feminine gay stereotype pretty well, he was still deeply entrenched in his own personal closet. Despite trying to appear somewhat straight, he would have been a believable queer then and there. So it seems that what we've associated with a feminine gay guy can be equally present in guys who are well and truly closeted. This, I feel, renders the comments on how it's learned behaviour pretty much moot. So then what's the big deal? Why are there still, and I am generalising here, but I've heard the sentiment from them most, why are there still straight men who express discomfort at encountering gay guys who exude their sexual orientation regardless of whether or not they wish to? On that I could speculate, but I think I'll leave these questions hanging. If you are a straight male, or if you've thought about this topic and wish to give your opinion, leave a comment below. I know I haven't answered everything, but I hope I've at least made you think. Until next time, goodbye.